What do you do when a student tells you, "I know you're writing on the board, but I can't make it out"? The whiteboard is full of writing in blue marker, and this student is not able to see what is there. Color vision deficiencies are real and impact a significant number of people. I'm Dr. Carla Collins, and I'm an Associate Professor of Education and School Librarianship at Longwood University in Farmville, Virginia. My mixed methods research topic was related to what school librarians know and believe about color vision deficiencies and how color is used in school libraries. I'm also the sister and mother of boys with color vision deficiencies. Today we're going to talk about background information of color vision deficiencies, why it matters in your classrooms, and we'll go through some simple simulations so you can experience what you might see with color vision deficiencies. First discovered by John Dalton, a chemist in the late 1700s and early 1800s, Dalton presented his ideas in his Extraordinary Facts Relating to the Vision of Colors with Observation, where he described his and his brother's experiences with being colorblind. The term Daltonism is now sometimes used to refer to red-green color vision deficiencies. The term color vision deficiencies means the inability to identify or distinguish between colors. We often hear it described as colorblind when talked about in general conversation. Colorblind is frankly easier to say, so I'll use those terms, color vision deficiency or CVD, and colorblind interchangeably in this training. However, it should be noted that true colorblindness is very rare and technically refers to the inability to see any color and only seeing in shades of gray. This rare condition is not the topic of our conversation for this training. If I use the term colorblind, I'll be referring to the condition of color vision deficiency, the inability to identify or distinguish between colors. According to various studies, 8 to 10% of the male population is affected by color vision deficiencies and less than 1% of females. Later, we'll look at how these percentages compare to some commonly known disabilities. To put this in perspective, in a class of 25 students, there is likely at least one person who sees the world differently. In an average-sized school or small college, statistically there could be enough boys with color vision deficiencies to easily fill a classroom. However, color vision deficiencies often go undiagnosed, and it's not uncommon for a person with CVD to be unaware of it until questioned by someone else. Both of my brothers are colorblind, and neither one knew it until they were young adults. One was going for a private pilot's license when he found out he could not see the colors change on the lantern test. That began his journey of discovering that what he sees is not the same as what many of us see. CVD is not considered a disability under the Americans with Disabilities Act, so it is not a condition that requires educators to make accommodations available, and we'll come back to this point later in our training. Most color vision deficiencies are genetic, a sex-linked trait that is most often passed from mother to the son on the X chromosome. According to Jay Neitz, a leading researcher in this field, this is the most common single gene disorder in both men and women. Let's take a minute to look at how this works. As the diagram shows, boys have a 50-50 chance of receiving an affected X chromosome from a carrier mother. A boy with an affected X chromosome would have some form of color vision deficiency. My family is a good example of this. I'm a carrier mother. My oldest son did not receive an affected X, but my identical twin boys do, and they're colorblind. My mother was also a carrier and passed the affected X to both of her sons and to at least one of her daughters, me. I'm not affected, just a carrier. In order for a girl to be affected, she would have to have an affected father and a carrier mother, each giving an affected X chromosome to the daughter. Otherwise, this dominant unaffected X chromosome would take over. This explains the difference in occurrence between males and females. My affected boys will pass an affected X to their daughters, who could in turn pass it to their children. In addition to the genetically linked deficiencies, there are a number of other conditions that could cause a person to acquire color vision deficiencies, usually later in life, such as cataracts and Parkinson's disease. Some medications and the aging process may also cause color vision abnormalities. In the human eye, photoreceptor cells, rods and cones, are responsible for vision. Rods help us see in low light, while cones help us distinguish colors. When the photoreceptor cells are not functioning properly or are missing, color vision deficiencies occur. As I mentioned, rods help us to see in low light. They have nothing to do with color, which is why we cannot distinguish colors in the dark. Everything appears to us in shades of gray. Cones are the receptors that allow humans to see colors from the visible light spectrum. When light is passed through the eye, the cones detect the wavelengths and pass that information to the optic nerve, signaling our brain to identify the color based on the wavelength. The brain will perceive a different color. For example, if the eye cannot detect the long wavelength, no red will be perceived in the color of what is seen. Therefore, purple will be perceived as blue. There have been lengthy debates about whether, for this reason, there is really such a thing as color, or if it's just something made up in our minds. We will not get into that debate, but it might give you something to ponder later on. This chart will be available in your resources module, so you can look at it in more detail later, but just to give you an overview. It shows various forms of color vision deficiencies. Humans are trichromats, meaning we have 3 cones and the ability to see the full range of colors in all 3 wavelengths. Most other mammals are dichromats, having only 2 color receptors. A very small portion of people are monochromats, with only 1 type of cone. These are the people who are truly colorblind and see only in shades of gray. When a cone is present but not working correctly, it's called anomalous trichromacy. And the 3 photoreceptors are present, but only working within 2 wavelengths, causing the person to be weak in the affected area. Sometimes a cone is missing entirely, leading to a more severe color vision deficiency that falls into the category of dichromacy. The chart gives 3 variations with anomalous trichromacy and within dichromacy. It also presents an estimate of how common each might be and some additional information about what might be seen. You'll also note that a defective or missing blue cone is the rarest and most severe form of trichromacy and dichromacy, and is typically an acquired condition, not genetic. It's important to keep in mind that it's unlikely for 2 people to have the exact same color vision deficiency. Even my identical twin boys tested differently when given the HHR test for color vision deficiencies. While they likely have the same type of deficiencies, the severity differs. This will impact our later discussion about addressing the needs of students in the classroom. These images were created with IDEA's Color Vision tool, which was designed to assist web developers in choosing good colors for their websites. The images simulate what a person with color vision deficiencies might see compared to someone with normal color vision. There will be a link to this website in the resources module. So why does it matter? As color is becoming easier and less expensive to produce, it's becoming more prevalent in instructional materials. Think about textbooks from 30 years ago. What were the pictures and diagrams like? Compare that to textbooks now. I want to read a couple of quotes to you to encourage your thinking. The ability to distinguish colors is arguably more critical today than at any other time in human history. Color is ubiquitous in many tools people use in their jobs, from computer monitors to LED programs to color business charts and graphs. Indeed, the design of the modern world, from websites with colors that pop to road signs that are color-coded to ensure less driver distraction, is dedicated to those who can differentiate colors. Even in the world of sports, the ability to distinguish the colors of an opposing team's uniforms is crucial to both the ability to enjoy the game as a player or a spectator. And a quote from Dwyer's research related to the impact on children shows the potential emotional impact. For children with moderate to severe color vision defects, the impact of color is reduced, both as an attentional and as a learning cue. However, since most color vision defects in young children go undetected, misperceptions of color might be misinterpreted by parents and teachers, thus producing frustration and anxiety. Think about how a misinterpretation of a student's reaction to color information might impact that student and the teacher. The teacher might assume that the student is intentionally giving the wrong answer, when in reality, the student is answering according to what he sees. As mentioned earlier, it is not uncommon for color vision deficiencies to be undetected, leaving the door wide open for unintentional consequences that impact understanding and learning. You might wonder how a student can get through K-12 school without being tested for this condition. The requirements for color vision screening in public schools vary greatly from state to state. Some states do require color vision screening as part of the state-mandated vision screening, usually upon entering primary school. Pennsylvania's requirement goes into the importance of this screening and says in part, knowledge of a student's ability to perceive colors should be of significance to classroom teachers. It goes on to talk about the importance in those elementary grades in seeing those visual cues. Virginia is among a number of states that require vision screening, but color vision screening is only recommended, not required. I do know of one school division in Virginia that just recently mandated screening for all of their students for CVD. Arizona is an example, and not the only one, of states that do not mandate vision screening at all. Interesting, Arizona's code does include language about the importance of color vision. They give a definition of the term, and then they go on to say, it is important for parents or guardians, teachers and others, to be informed about this condition, as the condition can be reasonably accommodated under Section 504 of the Americans with Disabilities Act. I recently had a conversation with someone from another state who did not understand how a person could not know about a color vision deficiency. This person was tested repeatedly by her pediatrician when she was younger. I explained that this was not the practice everywhere. It is very possible and quite common for a person to reach college and adulthood without knowledge of a color vision deficiency. I use this person's father as an example. His CVD was undetected until until young adulthood. Let's look back at the rate of CVD as compared to other commonly accommodated conditions. I want to be clear that I'm not suggesting that color vision deficiency is a disability or that it impacts life and learning as severely as the learning disabilities listed here. I'm merely using this information to give a point of reference for how many people are affected by CVD as compared to disabilities that we might hear about more often. By looking at these numbers, it is clear that the prevalence of color vision deficiencies is comparable or more common than many of the disabilities that are often accommodated in the classroom. You might remember the old game Mastermind. The goal was to match the colors of the person on the other side of the board. So when you look at these pegs, what are the colors of these pegs? With normal color vision and without differences due to screen resolution and projection, you should see white, yellow, orange, and teal or aqua or turquoise, a greenish blue. These pegs are in a different order, and the color is adjusted to remove either green or red. So what are these colors? Did you guess orange, yellow, purple, and turquoise? What about these? If you saw these pegs, would you know what color names to assign? Did you guess orange, yellow, orange, orange? When I showed this to someone with color vision deficiencies, he thought for a long time before he explained that the two on the right are the same, but he was not sure about the one on the left. He knew yellow, and he could tell that the two close together were the same, and he explained that he can usually tell that colors are different if they're beside each other, but distance between the colors makes it more difficult to differentiate. Can you identify the colors in the stars on the bottom right of the screen? What color names would you give to each one? Which do you think is red? What about the green? I recently turned this into a family game with some good sports in my family. When shown to someone with normal color vision, she was able to name the colors on the bottom right of the screen quickly and accurately. However, someone with color vision deficiencies took a long time to think about each star, other than the yellow. He knew that one right off. And someone with cataracts also took a long time before just giving up and saying, I just can't see it. For some more ideas of how color might be used and how those with CVD may see the world, take a look at Colorblind World website that's linked in the resources, and then view the No Such Thing as Color interview, also linked in the resources, for some insight into the thoughts and experiences of a person living with color vision deficiencies. So is color vision deficiency a hidden disability? Many sources define a hidden or invisible disability as a disability that may not be immediately apparent to others. This term is commonly associated with neurological conditions such as traumatic brain injury or chronic pain conditions. There are no outward signs of the condition that would alert others. Upon first sight, it is not clear that that person is living with a disability or a difference. To be clear, and as I mentioned earlier, CVD is not recognized as a disability under the Americans with Disabilities Act. However, I think it is safe to describe it as a hidden disability based on the limiting condition of this the limiting effect of this condition and the potential impact on daily life. The important thing to remember is that what an outsider sees may not be the whole story. One cannot determine what another person sees or how they perceive what is seen. We cannot and must not make assumptions that everyone sees the world the way we see it. Color is in the eye of the beholder. Please go to the resource module for many links to additional information about color vision deficiencies. Links to the websites mentioned in this presentation are also included in the resource module. Now that you have a good background into color vision deficiencies, move on to the next module in which we will cover universal design for learning. Thank you.